Lakeland PBS presents Common Ground, brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Production funding of Common Ground is made possible in part by First National Bank Bemidji, continuing their second century of service to the community. Member FDIC. Welcome to Common Ground. I'm producer-director Scott Knudsen. In this first of a two-part series, we take an inside look at Bemidji Community Theater.
I have a sister who doesn't do a lot of theater, but watches movies all the time. And I told her, theater is live movies. It's got the same action, it's got people that are playing different roles, it's got lights, it's got music, it's got stage fighting, it's got everything you would see in a movie, but it's live. And that's what's so exciting, because it's live, anything can happen. Like you could forget the rope in Oklahoma and have to use a wire. There's all kinds of fun stuff, and it's never the same way twice. And I think that's what's so fun about live theater. All the arts are important in a community because they all embrace people to be their best self. Not everybody's athletic. Not everybody can play on the football team or the baseball team or the basketball team. But to get involved in theater and find your place there, either on stage or off, everything's important. Everybody plays a part and everybody's as important as the person on stage.
Access to arts and culture is the hallmark of the Bemidji community. We are 250 miles away from Minneapolis-St. Paul, which is the hub of arts in the state of Minnesota. We want to be the northern hub of arts. We want to have the Watermark, the Chief Theater, Bemidji Community Theater, the Sculpture Walk. We want to have a whole encompassing arts experience for our community members to enrich them, to delight them, to transport them, to make life in Bemidji a whole experience. We have the outdoors and the beauty of nature, but we also have the indoors and the magic of theater. And that's what Bemidji Community Theater is a part of in this area.
Bemidji Community Theater is of, by, and for the community, which means all the actors are local. They might be your banker, your dentist, the guy that lives down the street. All the people that build your sets, your musicians, everyone involved lives in this community and becomes part of this activity. And that's important when you think that it is for the community. We audition all ages. We usually put a lower limit of about 7 or 8. I think it's 8, all the way up to we don't care, you could be 105. I usually say 8 to 80, come and audition for us because we'll find a part for you.
My name is Christine Cannon. I've been a member of Community Theater since 2010. I'm currently on the board of directors. I'm the treasurer at this point in time, and I have been involved in community theater as a board member, as an officer, as someone on the boards, on stage, as someone behind the scenes, a stage manager, lighting, makeup, you name it. I've participated in it in Bemidji Community Theater. I also write a number of the grants, as does Mary Knox Johnson. And since we are a grant-driven organization in many respects, those are important roles. Well, Bemidji Theater is a group of people. I think our little mission statement says a collection of folks, basically. Bemidji Community Theater is by, for, and about the community. Everything we do involves community members and groups from the community. All of our actors are volunteers. All of our board members are volunteers. We get a volunteer force to help us strike, to help us clean the building, to help us build things. So it's all about gathering groups from the community. The origin of Bemidji Community Theater is kind of interesting. They're a group of people who are interested in doing theater and not participating in Paul Bunyan Playhouse, which was a professional summer theater. So they would gather and they would read plays out loud to each other. They would have little social gatherings that revolved around the concept of theater. And that evolved eventually into doing a Christmas carol. I think it was over Christmas in 1981. And then they put on a couple of shows. And by then they became a little bit more organized, ultimately incorporating and turning into what Bemidji Theater is right now.
I'm good. That's good. Are you auditioning? I don't know yet.
My name is Vicki Stennerson. I am the president of Bemidji Community Theater Board of Directors. I've been involved with community theater for somewhere around 15 years. I've been involved with theater for somewhere around 30. I'm an actor. I'm a director. I am a light designer. I sew, so I help with costumes. And I think theater is just the best thing in the world. I love theater and all aspects of it, and even if you don't think you can be on stage, come see us do something. You'll love it, trust me. Bemidji Community Theater is a group of volunteers. We all volunteer, nobody gets paid, that get together and put on productions. We do plays and musicals, and we try and do 5 in a season. Our season runs from September through May, and we employ different directors, and we ask the community to come in and do the acting and to help with the technical aspects of it. We have a lot of people that do the sewing to make all those gorgeous costumes that we have. We have different people do the sound. I am training people to do lights, and we have a whole plethora of actors that we can tap whenever we need somebody. It's just a group of people who just really love theater, love plays, love musicals, singing, entertaining people, and that's what we do.
Bemidji Community Theater has more than one director. Vicki Stennerson has been one of our directors, along with Derek Hool, for a number of years. And she directs basically adults who are quite experienced. And so she has a little less pointing fingers, stand there kind of operational skill and operational mindset when she directs. She makes it very organic. You have to kind of sense where the other person is on stage, counter to respect that. If she sees something she doesn't like, she'll correct it, but she lets you organically become who you are on stage.
It is thrilling and nerve-wracking. I love acting and I love being on stage. You get to become someone else for an hour and a half. You say eloquent words that you probably wouldn't normally say yourself in your normal life. Once you've done it for a while, you don't even realize the audience is there because you are interacting with the other actors, and also because the lights are so bright you can't see them anyway because they shine right at you when you're on the stage. So that's what I tell my kids in class. You're not going to see them anyway, so just pretend they're not there. But I love bringing a playwright's words to life. That's the most fun, telling a story, bringing those words to life and being somebody else. It's a lot of fun.
I can't think of anything else.
Ernie Rawl is a longtime board member with Bemidji Community Theater. His late wife, Pat Rawl, used to come to the theater and write our reviews. He moved here from New Jersey, where he was involved in community theater there. He's always loved community theater. And he became a member of the board, and he was long-term president of Bemidji Community Theater. And he is currently vice president, and he has been involved in almost everything. He's always ready to volunteer. If we need to paint a set, Ernie's there. If we need to take stuff to the dump, Ernie's available. He is an integral part of Bemidji Community Theater.
I'm Ernie Rawl. I'm the vice president of Bemidji Community Theater. I've been involved with the community theater here for about 19 years. I moved here 20 years ago from New Jersey, and came here, thought it's a really cultural place, and got in touch with Dick Lubin, the late Dick Lubin. He was over my house in 5 minutes with an application form. So I signed up with Community Theater and auditioned for a show, then was involved with Paul Bunyan Playhouse, did a couple of shows with them, and since that time been involved with a number of BCT shows, and also production manager for most of the musicals. Production manager is the same as producer. Put together the budget, try to control the budget, try to control the director, and make suggestions on the show, and responsible for advertising, make sure that all the other things, make sure the advertising gets done, tickets are available, that rehearsals are on time, they oversee the whole process.
We always have Ernie as producer because he just oversees everything. If you have a problem with something as a director or the technical people or anybody like that, you can call Ernie and he'll get it solved. And he takes care of the box office for each of the plays. And yeah, Ernie's a backbone.
Well, in Bemidji, besides hunting and fishing, it's probably a worthwhile thing that a number of people are interested in. I know that was one of the reasons we picked Bemidji. My daughter came home on Christmas and said, guess what, you're finally going to be grandparents. So we said, well, we want to be out near her. So we moved out here and looked around, and Bemidji seemed like the place to be because of the arts.
All right, so when you come, okay, so walk around and give people a letter. You know, I wouldn't start there. Since we don't have KIT anymore, start right there.
We have a number of people who volunteer very extensively with Bemidji Community Theater. One of them is Mary Knox Johnson. She is a former theater educator, and she doesn't like to act. She likes to stay behind the scenes, but she is heavily involved in directing. She directs our musicals. She's very, very good with children, so she always includes children, and she believes it to be both an educational part of the mission, because our mission has evolved much more into education over the last 10 years. And she also does very extensive sets. She and her husband, Dwayne Johnson, design and build sets together. They're pretty much a team, and we get some of the most extraordinarily beautiful views of the life of the play on stage from Mary.
So, Julie enjoying her parents.
My name is Mary Knox Johnson, and I'm one of the directors for Bemidji Community Theater. I usually handle the musicals. I'm also the idea maker. So I think people get tired of me coming up with ideas, and I say, I've got the ideas, but I can't do all this myself. And so I'm out there writing grants, trying to get people to do some of these activities like Project Genesis and the Puppeteers and the BCT Junior Kids Clubhouse. So my mind always seems to be going, and people say, Mary, do you ever stop thinking? And I say, no, even when I'm asleep, I seem to be thinking of ideas, and then I have to get up, write them down. So I'm merely a director of 2 shows and an idea creator.
Mary Knox Johnson is a marvelous director. She has worked with kids for over 30 years. She taught theater before she retired. She taught in Fargo. And then we luckily got her here. And she's a hard director, but really fair. She expects the kids to do their job, to do their homework, memorize their lines, watch their blocking. She treats them a lot like a young adult.
I think theater is so important to people of all ages, but especially for children, because one, it teaches them discipline, it gives them confidence, it teaches them to project and to interact with other people, and I think they can take those skills that they learn on the stage and transfer them into their schoolwork or into other activities that they are in. Because let's say that one of them might be a dancer. Well, they've learned some confidence and they're not feeling so uncomfortable being in front of a group. Or even a team sport, they've learned how to get along with people. So I think it always transfers to the real world.
I think it imposes a discipline on them, a discipline to study your script and remember lines and act this way and act that way. And they're pretty well-behaved kids. I think it's a good positive impact on them.
Christine Cannon is the treasurer of the board. She is an outstanding stage manager. She's uber organized. And most of our children's musicals have at least 20 kids, and usually more like 30. So corralling 30 kids from age 8 to age 18 takes a talent. And Christine's got that talent.
Very conscientious woman, smart, and really a pleasure to work with. Christine is a can-do person.
But she's also my right-hand person. And sometimes when we talk, we will finish one another's sentences, and people just look at us and go, "Are you sisters or something?" And I say, "No, we're not. We've just worked together so much now with community theater. We know what one another is thinking." So Christine has a wonderful imagination as well as a wonderful organizer. And sometimes when we're writing grants, you know, you get to the point that your mind is just going, I don't know what I'm doing. You have just read so much and written so much. And so I'll send her a note, an email, and I'll say, "Christine, my mind is boggled. Can you do some wordsmithing for me?" And so she'll send it back in her beautiful language. And yes, that's exactly what I needed.
I guarantee, and probably about...
The Reluctant Dragon was a wonderful show that included many children and many adults. It was clearly a fantasy show. But in the development of the costumes, we have Dennis the Reluctant Dragon, and we had skin suits on our dragonettes, and the village was replete with various characters that were very intricately developed.
At first, when we chose the show, we weren't quite sure how we were going to do the dragons, because we always do research, and we found out that some people used actual puppets, some people used actors, some people just pretended. And I said, no, we want them to be more realistic.
And she teaches young people and actors of all ages how to involve their character, how to become that person and maintain that character whenever they're on stage.
You're all auditioning?
Yes, we are.
All right, I want you each to fill out a form.
Basically, the first step after you pick a play or a musical is to audition people for the different roles.
We advertise in the Pioneer and on our website the time and the date for the auditions, the requirements to audition.
At the new space, we have 150 feet that we can do just about anything with. And so usually when someone comes into audition, we greet them at the front door and they fill in the paperwork. And then we have some partitions set up near the back of the building where they will then come back, meet the directors, and that's where they'll actually do the audition.
An audition is a kind of complicated process. A lot of kids think they want to do theater, so we'll get a ton of children coming in wanting to be in the show, and they don't understand that the audition process is a vetting process that's pretty difficult sometimes. So we ask anybody who auditions for a show to come in. They have about a 5 to 7 minute time slot, and what they have to do is they have to introduce themselves on the stage so we can get a sense of their stage presence.
Do you have enough confidence now to be a lead? Do you have the talent that needs to be honed, so we'll start you in the background? And it's with each play, you can work yourself forward. That again, if it's weak, we can build that strength up. We just keep working with you. That's why they call them directors.
And then they have to sing a song. 16 bars a cappella of some song. Now, all the time we'll get teenagers to come in and they'll sing a popular song and they try and do it in the voice of the artist. And we'll back them up a little bit and say, we want to hear your voice. So oftentimes we'll have them just sing Happy Birthday or something like that so we can hear what their voice sounds like, not mimicking some famous person. And then we have them do a monologue. If they are inexperienced and haven't memorized a monologue, we just have them read a story, say a poem, just so that we know what they sound like in their speaking voice. We also teach audition strengths at BCT Junior or Summer Theater Camp, and so many kids who have gone through theater camp know how to audition, have monologues ready and prepared.
Those three get together then and look at who would be the best for each part. They have a list of parts and they have a list of people auditioned. And they look to see, okay, this person looked the strongest and had the best voice, let's put them here. This person had a really strong personality and they were a little bit comical. Good, we can put them in this part, the comic relief. We tell kids, don't be discouraged about getting a small part. You gotta start somewhere. You gotta start somewhere. So get that first part under your belt, learn how the process is, learn about stagecraft, and then for the next audition, you've got that under your belt, you can build up and you can move from the chorus all the way up.
Some people come in auditioning for a specific role, but as we see the mix of people involved that we could potentially cast, we may see them in a different role. And we may see them doing other things, or they might not be quite strong enough or ready for that role. And so what we do is we organize our characters, and sometimes it's just a question of size and mix and look. So not getting a role doesn't mean you necessarily weren't good enough. It means that there was a better fit in the cast mixture.
They want to get the strongest cast possible. Sometimes the director will consult other directors they know. You'll get a phone call from one of the directors and they say, okay, I have this problem. I have this veteran who auditioned, but I have a new person who auditioned. And they had a really great voice, but I'm not sure about the acting. But we know the veteran can do it. So what do I do? So we all kind of collaborate, and the stage manager and producer and music person all talk about it, and that's how they decide who the cast is going to be.
I think casting anything is the hardest part of my job, because you could take anyone and move them around and the show would be different, but you have to put people where they best fit. So that might mean this person is playing a dragon and this person is playing a townsperson, and that might not be the part that they really auditioned for, but it's the part where they best fit to make the whole entity work as a unit.
After we do the auditions and have selected our cast, we call the individuals who have been awarded a role by telephone. The individuals who did not get a role in a show, we send them a letter and encourage them, and we'll personalize them and suggest that they work on this or this to do better next time. And we tell people, it isn't that you weren't good enough. It's just that we needed a different mixture for our show.
And once they have a cast, then they set up a rehearsal schedule. And they start out at small sections. They will probably rehearse pages 1 through 20 the first time. And they do that a couple times, so you get where you're going on a stage. And that's called blocking. You figure out where you're going to walk, who you're going to talk to, where you're going to be, where you land. All that is in the blocking, and that's how the rehearsal process goes. You learn to walk and talk at the same time on a stage with other people.
And usually was 3 rehearsals a week, probably about 2 hours long. As we get closer to the performance, usually we stretch that out, make it 2.5 hours, and if we need it. And most times we do need it.
We start with the music. We'll have 2 or 3 weeks with the music director learning the words, the songs, how the music is done, and then we'll slowly start to build in to building the scenes. And Mary will block scenes and we will run through them with where they stand, how they move, who they're next to, and singing.
So our vocal director is a woman named Julie Loxterkamp, who actually teaches music at Jean Dellen Elementary, and she has been helping us now for a couple of years, and she's really, really great. She just has this wonderful rapport with young people especially. And new for our accompanist was Carla Norris Rainbird, and Carla tells us that she has never accompanied a full musical before, that she sometimes accompanies a soloist or something of that sort. But I think she did a wonderful job for her first show, and I hope that she will help us out again. I think a musical is a little harder just because there are so many components. So besides the acting component and the costuming and the set design, you also have to confer with your vocalist and make sure that your accompanist knows what's happening, and then you have choreography as well.
Now, when you practice music, you stand in groups with your same voices. So sopranos will stand here, altos will stand here, etc. But when you're on stage, you're not necessarily going to be standing by somebody who you typically sing with. So that's why everybody has to know the music so well and can be independent in how they present their voice, because you'll have little pockets of groups all over the stage who will be singing together. For example, the Dragonettes. They will practice together. They will practice their blocking and singing, and since it was a major part with Dennis the Dragon, they would get together a little earlier or stay a little later, or some rehearsals would just involve the Dragonettes. The family, Mom, Dad, Joey, would rehearse together and practice together so that they could sing in different positions. When you're on stage acting, you don't get to just stand on the risers and sing. You're having to move around, you're having to sit down, you're having to sword fight, you're having to lean over. So you're in different positions. So your singing has to be able to come out over that, and being able to position your body so you can act your role and sing is one of the talents that people learn.
Once we get to rehearsal, I expect them to be as professional as any of the other actors on stage. I realize that we are community theater, and some people say, well, you're not professional theater, but we are, and we are going to do the best theater that we possibly can with the people that we have.
Thank you so much for watching. Join us again next week for part 2 on Common Ground. If you have an idea for Common Ground in North Central Minnesota, email us at legacy@lptv.org or call 218-333-3014. To watch Common Ground online, visit lptv.org and click Local Shows. Episodes or segments of Common Ground, call 218-333-3020. Production funding of Common Ground was made possible in part by First National Bank Bemidji, continuing their second century of service to the community. Member FDIC. Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money by the vote of the people November 4th, 2008. If you watch Common Ground online, consider becoming a member or making a donation at lptv.org.